Hi there, my name's Andy, I'm the Suffolk Audiophile, and welcome to my first video. Today I'm just going to quickly go over a brief potted history of me and what got me back into Vine a little while ago. So I started collecting records way back in the late 70s, probably around 77, 78, when I was 11 or 12. First record I bought, I remember it quite well. It was War of the Worlds, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds in 1978. So that was my kick-start into collecting records. Went through the 80s, and like most people, I collected. I bought records of bands that I liked, and back then in the late 70s, early 80s, into mid 80s, I was into post-punk, new wave, that sort of thing. And obviously around about the time of the late 80s, CD started taking its hold on the music industry, and by 1989, 1990, CD had pretty much established itself. It was at that time that I bought my first 2 or 3 CDs. I got The Thieving Magpie by Marillion, and also in 1990 I got Ragged Glory by Neil Young on CD, and I didn't actually have a CD player. I bought the Marillion album on CD purely because it was for sale in the used record shop. It was used, and a friend of mine worked in there, and I bought it for about £3. It was a double CD. But Ragged Glory was the first brand new CD I bought. I didn't actually have a CD player at that time, so I went out and bought one, and then started the downhill slide into CDs, and I stopped buying vinyl from then on. I bought myself in 1992 my first serious stereo system. It was a Kenwood M85G. That was quite a good system for the time, I suppose. To me, it was an expensive system. To me, it was like the pinnacle of audio reproduction. Obviously, I know a lot better now, but back then, I paid £1,000 for that in 1992, and that was it as far as I was concerned. At that time, I was just a record collector. In other words, I was just collecting records of bands and artists that I liked. Got there around about 2003, 2004, and I've been married for about 8 years, 7 or 8 years, and I decided that enough was enough. I'm going to get rid of the record collection. At that time, the record collection was about 600 or 700 LPs and about 200 7-inch singles. Not a massive amount by comparison to some, but it was quite a lot for me. And I sold them all at a boot sale, or a yard sale, as you Americans would say. But I sold them at a boot sale. I sold an awful lot of good stuff. In hindsight, I was mad. I sold first pressings of Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. I sold a still sealed, unplayed copy of Pulse on vinyl by Pink Floyd. I sold a signed first pressing of Space Ritual by Hawkwind, signed by Bob Calvert and Dave Brock. I sold many, many rare and collectible records that, in hindsight now, I'm looking back thinking, God, I was mad. And how much I let them go for. Anyway, sold my collection in 2003, 2004, and I then sold the Kenwood shortly after that for £75 on eBay. I sold the whole system, so I was then down to just listening to CDs through my computer and files, MP3s. Oh, I hate to say it, MP3s and FLAC files, through my computer. At that time, I wasn't bothered about fidelity. I just like listening to the music. And I think I've become desensitized to vinyl. I've been desensitized to even CD, really, to a certain degree, because I was just using computer speakers. They're fairly decent computer speakers, but I wasn't really getting the benefit of even CD, let alone vinyl. Anyway, we whiz forward to 2017, and my brother gives my son Jordan a little MIDI system with a turntable on it, and we got it home, and I said, you're going to have to buy a record for that because we haven't got any records in the house. So we went down to our local record shop and he bought a BB King album on vinyl. It was a reissue. We got it home, played it, and the whole process of putting the needle on the record was very satisfying. And I felt that I'd been missing out, so I bought myself another record player. And as would have it, I managed to buy another Kenwood system exactly the same, identical to the one that I'd sold previously. The first record I bought when I got my new system was also the first record I bought back in 1978, was War of the Worlds. And I started thinking about re-buying the records that really had an impact on me when I was younger. Ones that I regretted getting rid of. Ones that really made a mark on me when I was growing up. So I started collecting again. And that year, shortly after that, 2 or 3 years after Jordan got his little MIDI system, my next door neighbour gave him a Kenwood amplifier, Kenwood tape deck, but these are decent ones. These are decent proper separates and a decent set of speakers. And that Christmas we bought Jordan a Rager P1, and as soon as I heard some records played on that P1, it was like a breath of fresh air. And I then knew that, you know what, the Kenwood's got to go, and I've got to invest in a decent system. So I did. I'll go through my system in a later video, but today I just want to talk about my A to Z. It was quite apparent to me that when I first started recollecting the records a few years back, after 2 or 3 years, it was quite apparent to me that I'd actually virtually covered the A to Z of music with the artists that I bought. And I'd spent time seeking out the same versions or the pressings that I had owned previously. So, first pressings, etc. Seeking out these specific versions. Using Discogs, through a work colleague, I discovered Discogs, and to date, Discogs has been my friend. I will cover Discogs in a future video because I think there's an awful lot that people need to know about Discogs and how to use it. I've been using Discogs now pretty much exclusively to buy 95% of my records. And I think out of all the records I bought off Discogs, I've only had 2 turkeys. Generally speaking, what I bought was what I was expecting. I think I've learned a few ground rules of using Discogs. But anyway, on to my A to Z. So over the next few videos, I'm going to be covering the A to Z of the records that I bought when I started collecting vinyl second time round. So these are going to be records that had an impact on me, ones that I felt I really needed to buy again to kickstart my vinyl journey. They're quite eclectic. It's an eclectic mix. Everything from country to punk is all there. But these are all records that through the years of me collecting from sort of 78 through to the early 90s, they're all records that had an impact on me from a musical perspective, and also from a perspective of growing up, I suppose, and how they affect you. You know, records that mean a lot to you on a personal level. So, without further ado, let's get on with the A to Z. Let's kick off with A. And the first record I want to talk about is a record that came out in the early 80s. I think it was the early 80s. Let's see. Yeah, 1980. This record I first heard about when I first saw the album being released, advertised on the TV here in the UK. They had an advertising campaign for it. And I remember my sister bought it, and I just remember playing the record when she was out. The B-side for me was the one that really I kept playing, the B-side of the album, but the whole album was good. And that's Return a Friendly Card by the Alan Parsons Project. Now, this record was one of the first main records I bought. I suppose this was about the 3rd or 4th record I bought when I started recollecting records again. And by this time, I'd started listening or watching certain YouTube channels like In Groove, Analog Planet, etc. And I was learning about different pressing plants, different manufacturers, you know, different record companies, etc. And I got this version. This is a Speaker's Corner pressing, and this is an all analog record. It was cut using the original master tapes in Germany, and this is a phenomenal sounding pressing of this record. If you can get it, I think it's still available from Speaker's Corner. If you can get it, it's really worth seeking out. It's a brilliant record, brilliant pressing, and it's on my A to Z of records that I must have when I started recollecting vinyl. Let me move on to the second record in my A to Z. This is this record was a surprise to me when I first heard it. I wasn't a fan back in the early 80s. I actually grew to like this album in the late 80s, early 90s. I had it on CD, never owned it on vinyl. And when I started collecting vinyl again, it was a no-brainer. So, Lexicon of Love, ABC. This is a first pressing. This is a ticket. I took my wife to see them at the Albert Hall in London when they performed the whole album live. And that was a fantastic concert. And so I've kept the tickets in there. But the actual album, obviously, from the early 80s, I think it was 82. 82, yeah, 82. It's all analog, there's no digital on this. And produced by Trevor Horn. The production on this is fantastic. The mastering choices on it are really, really good. It's just a great pop album. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say about this. This is a first pressing on the Neutron label. It's pretty pristine. I got this off Discogs. I got this used off Discogs. It cost me about 10 quid. 10, £12 used. In near mint condition. Covers VG Plus. The vinyl, the record is a good, strong mint minus. Yeah, it just needed a good clean when I got it, and it was perfect, really. Yeah, ABC, like Lexicon of Love. We're moving on to B now. So this next record I bought when it first came out back in 79. Yeah, 79. And it's a 12-inch single. It's not an LP. But to me, this record started my journey on post-punk, new wave, etc. And got my interest up for that sort of thing. And it's Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus. This is a first pressing on Small Wonder Records. This is another one off Discogs. The sleeve and the record are mint minus. They're both excellent. Very little wrong with it. Wasn't cheap. It cost me about 30 quid, but you know, it's a great record. It's a landmark piece. This record probably kick-started the Gothic movement in the UK. We had Susie and the Banshees before this came out, but I don't think it really started getting motivation until Bauhaus released this. This is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant record, and it still sounds brilliant today as it did back then. So yeah, Bauhaus. Bauhaus. Bela Lugosi's Dead. So after I bought Bauhaus, Bela Lugosi's Dead, I thought, you know what, I fancy getting some more Bauhaus because I used to have all their albums, but I wasn't really in the right mind at that time to buy all the albums again. Maybe I will at some point, but I just wanted to cherry pick certain tracks. So I bought more or less at the same time as Bela Lugosi's Dead. I bought this, which is, again, I got off Discogs. This is 79 to 83. It's a compilation album. It's a double album. This is the limited numbered edition. It comes with a book inside it. It is a double album. It's a great sounding record. It's got all of their big hitters on it. It's got a live version of Bela Lugosi's Dead on this. which is good, but I wish they put the studio version on here instead. I'm not sure why they done that, but they did. But it's got Spirit on there. I think it's got Ziggy on there. Ziggy Stardust, I think. Double Dare is an absolute classic track by them. But yeah, Bauhaus, 79 to 83. Well worth checking out, well worth trying to get hold of if you can get this. Obviously, it's an all analog cut. It's there's no digital on this. Through my brother, I got heavily into the Beatles in the late 70s, early 80s, and I collected all of their records. And obviously, when I sold my record collection, I sold all my Beatles records. I had everything by them. But there's one record of theirs that I thought, you know what, I'm gonna buy them all again, all the Beatles albums again. But the first one I'm going to buy is the one that had the most impact on me, and that's this one, Revolver. So this is, you can see that. This is the 2014 mono release of it. Fortunately, when I started recollecting vinyl records, I was lucky that you could still buy the Beatles mono records individually, not in the box. And at that time, I didn't have the spare cash to go and splash out on the box set, which I was a bit disappointed in because I wanted the book. But you know what? I managed to spread the cost of buying the entire mono back catalogue over about 4 or 5 months. I bought the whole lot, buying maybe 1 or 2 a month. So yeah, Revolver was the first one I bought, and I then went on to subsequently buy, like I say, all of the mono records up to the White Album. I'm still down a couple of records in my Beatles collection, being a bit pedantic about those though, because I want first pressings, and it's not a cheap thing buying first pressings of Beatles records, so I've got to be patient and wait for the right moment to come along till I lay the money down for those. But yeah, the Beatles Revolver, a brilliant album. In mono, it sounds really, really good. I think the stereo mix of this is a bit shoddy in places. It's not as good as it could be. Am I a fan of the Giles Martin remixes? Yes and no. I think the job he did on Abbey Road was good. I think the job he did on Pepper was okay. I know what he was trying to do with that. He was trying to make the stereo mix sound like the mono mix, which, you know, you might as well go and buy the mono mix if you're going to do that. But to be fair, if anything deserves a remaster, remix, if you like, it's this album. I think it would benefit a lot from being remixed and remastered. But I don't know if. I mean, I think it's going to be on the cards for them to do it, but I'm not a fan of the fact that they've transferred everything to digital, and they're doing it all digital mastering now. I'm not a fan of that. I understand it with the master tapes, but guess what? You know, make safety tapes. Just cut new safety tapes. Anyway, we go on to the last record in B, and this is a record that really had an impact on me in the early 80s, on myself and a friend of mine. to the point that, you know, it was our record. David Bowie released this for us. It was Scary Monsters. To date, this is still my favourite Bowie album. This has got everything in it that I want from a Bowie album, and it's got Robert Fripp on it, which is an absolute. His guitar playing on this album is on another level. Again, this is a first pressing on the RCA label. Again, it's in VG Plus, near mint. I would say it's more near mint than VG Plus. I paid about 20 quid for this, which is not much different to a reissue, which is digital. So this is all analog, obviously, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Scary Monsters, you know, it's got 5 tracks on the A side. 4 of those 5 tracks were singles, and they done really well in the charts. You know, you got Up the Hill Backwards, which is a brilliant record, a song. Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, obviously. Ashes to Ashes and Fashion. You know, 4 tracks, one after the other on this album, all hits. The opening track, It's No Game, Part 1, is a stonking way to open an album. And it also closes the album as well. It's, to me, almost like a concept album, but it's not. It opens and closes with the same song. And what happens between those songs is, to me, seems you're on a journey, and it then resolves back to It's No Game at the end. It's difficult to quantify, but I just remember this being played in discos back in the early 80s when I was on holiday in Blackpool with my mum and dad. I remember them playing this to death in the holiday camp disco. It was a great record, and it's, you know, still one of my favourites, and it was at the top of the list for me to buy of records when I started recollecting a few years back. I think this was about number 10 in my list of records to buy. Yeah, Scary Monsters, David Bowie. Moving on to C. While I was on holiday in Blackpool with my mum and dad, I used to buy the Melody Maker. Or was it the Enemy? I can't remember. It might have been Melody Maker. And I saw an advert in there for this record, and I realised that when it was being released, I was actually going to be on holiday in Blackpool. And this particular day, on its release day, I remember saying to my mum, I'm going to walk into Blackpool town centre, find a record shop and buy this record. So I went out and bought it, brought it back to the holiday camp, and realised I've got to sit there and look at it for the rest of the week because I can't play it because I'm on holiday. But that was this record, and this is The Cure, Faith, the Faith album. This had a massive impact on me. Many times I would lay in my bedroom, put this on, turn the lights out, and just go off in my own head listening to this record. This is the Robert Smith remaster, so it's a digital transfer, it's not analog, but it still sounds pretty good. Certain artists you will find are not that bothered about getting analog. If I can, I will. I just wanted this record, and I wasn't prepared to pay the top dollar for it for a first pressing when I wanted to rebuy it. So I've got this. This is the Robert Smith, like I say, Robert Smith remaster. It's good. It's a good record. It's quiet, and it just still delivers to me the goods. Brilliant album, worth checking out if you're into The Cure, and maybe, you know, there's a lot of people out there that maybe like The Cure and they haven't heard their early output. The first 3 or 4 albums, to me, are must-haves. The first album, the second album, 17 Seconds, this one, and Pornography, all brilliant albums. And, you know, must-haves in the record collection. So yeah, The Cure, Faith. In the late 80s, I remember going out for a drink with a friend of mine, in his car actually, and he had on his tape player in the car this album. He had bought it on cassette tape, and he was playing this in his car, and I fell in love with it immediately. And he let me borrow the tape, and I took it home and immediately copied it on the Kenwood. And that's this, Cult, Sonic Temple. This record, as a hard rock record, defined the gap between post-punk and American rock. The Cult, obviously, a great post-punk band. You know, from the early 80s, they were brilliant, but then they started getting more rocky. The Electric album was very Led Zeppelin-ish. Then they brought this out, and I still remember the headline in the Melody Maker after they supported Guns N' Roses at Milton Keynes, and the headline, or I think it was the Melody Maker, said, "The Cult show Guns N' Roses how to play American rock." It's pretty true, actually. This record redefined to me how rock can sound. Billy Duffy, one of the biggest underrated guitarists in rock, but look at that. That's a classic rock god pose. This is a first pressing. I got this, it was a no-brainer. Again, got this off Discogs, cost me about 15, 20 quid. Near mint, or VG Plus, at least, near mint minus. And it sounds phenomenal. Cult, Sonic Temple, just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant sounding record, and worth checking out. And last, but by no means least, we move on to C for this week. And I got this on the strength of my brother loaning me all of their back catalogue. He come round our house one day with a carrier bag full of records, and all the records were by Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and the one that stood out to me was this one, Deja Vu. This is a fantastic record. When I played it all the way through for the first time, it really had that impact on me. I'd never really heard country rock before this, and I was sold on it. It was brilliant. This is one of the very, very few records I got off eBay. This was the first record I bought on eBay. It's a second pressing. It's not the Plum label. It's just the standard Atlantic label. So this is the second or third pressing. But it was being advertised in eBay as VG Plus. Now, I don't generally buy records now from eBay because I think it's not. I'd rather buy from a record seller stroke collector. I don't think eBay is the right forum to buy records. It's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. But I love this so much. I had to buy it again. So when I started recollecting vinyl records, I bought this. It's a great pressing. It sounds excellent. It sounds great. and delivered the goods, to the point that a year or so ago they released the remaster. They remastered it, and they released it in a number of flavours, but the one that I looked at and the one that I wanted excuse me, was the D2C copy pressing that they brought out, which was box set. That was quite an expensive thing to buy as well. It was only being sold through the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young website or the Rhino website. You couldn't buy it through any record stores. You couldn't buy it from Amazon. You couldn't buy it from anywhere. But I bit the bullet. And placed an order because I had a bit of extra cash laying about. I placed the order through the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young website. I pre-ordered it, and it arrived shortly thereafter. This is a fantastic box set. Every single record in here is well made. Comes in a slipcase. There's the other part of the case, and it's got a lovely smell, like a leathery smell. Beautiful. Comes with a set of photographs. The first copies were numbered. There's my number. Not that I follow numbers, but there it is. I've got 572. I was one of the early birds. So in this folder, you've got some photographs. Yeah, some pretty cool photographs. Yeah, you see, that's it. Get the photographs. Comes with a book. The book's pretty good as well. It's got an essay in there. It's got loads of photographs, and it's just a good. It's a good book. But the gold is in the vinyl records themselves. Each one is in a tip-on jacket, really, really heavy-duty cardboard. It's a reproduction of the original. It's got the stuck-on slick on the front. Really, really good. You get alternate versions. Again, this is in a tip-on jacket. It's got some alternative photographs on the inside there. They all come in a decent sleeve. Outtakes. There's an outtakes album. Again. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And last, we've got demos. This is a double album of demos. Again, it's a gatefold. This is a really good package. It came in a Crosby, Stills and Nash branded shipping container as well, which is just a cardboard box, but it had CSNY on it. I didn't keep that. I wish I had now. But hey ho, I didn't really think about it at the time. I thought, it's a cardboard box. But let's put this away in a minute. I'll put that away in a minute. But there we go. That's my first A to Z of my record collecting journey after my reintroduction to vinyl records, and thanks to my brother giving my son a small record player, it got me kick-started back into collecting records. And in about a week's time, we'll do D to F. Okay, so come back next week, and we'll continue the journey then. Thanks. Cheers. Bye.